My name is John Maker, and this video is about basic Christianity in my life. And this is where it all began. When I was a little boy, I was baptized here at St. Joseph's Catholic Church here in Hominy, Oklahoma, by an old Irish priest, Father McMahon. He was a well-known Irish priest around this area at that time. As we go over to the church itself, you can see that it kind of has a Spanish-style architecture. And it's a rather small church, but it's a good-sized church for Hominy. Our town here has a population of around 2,200 people. So this is where it all began for me. And back to how it started with me. My mother, who was half Osage and half Scottish, was raised by her Scottish grandmother, and they were very strict Catholics, which is a reason why my mother, of course, had me and my brother baptized in the Catholic Church as young boys, around 4 and 5 years old. So, but another thing, which to me is a part of the history of the Catholic Church in my life, is that I am Osage Indian, and there's a long history of the Osage people and the Catholic Church, which began back in Missouri in the 1700s. So it's no mystery why the Osages really did favor the Catholic religion, other than the other religions, the Protestants. So that is part of the history of the Osage people and the Catholic Church. So we're now going to go to the next part of my religious training and upbringing, over to the Friends Church here in Hominy, Oklahoma. Okay, now a lot of people think it's a little unusual for someone to be both Catholic and Quaker, in which it is. It is very unusual. But here in Hominy, our little town here, especially with the Osage people, it's not unusual. It's not unusual because a lot of Osages come to the Catholic Church and also go to functions at the Friends Church here. Mainly because back in when I was growing up, a lot of the people went to the Friends Church up here, and even the chief of the Osages back in the 60s came to church up here at the Friends Church here in Hominy, which is a Quaker church. And it's very well known here in Hominy. And also, this church got special permission from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to be built here on this corner. This corner is part of the reserve of the Osage Indian Village. And this is the only one that got permission to have a church built on this little 2 acres here was given to the Friends Meeting House, the Quaker Church. And at one time, this was the main meeting place of all the social functions of the tribe, because we didn't have the village down where we'll be going in a few minutes, wasn't even built yet. So if we can get out here. So this little church has a lot of memories for me. Like I was saying, I went to the Catholic Church baptized there and a member, but also I went to church. So you might say I went to both churches. But the main reason I came to this church is because my grandmother was a member of this church, and I loved going to church with her, and it wasn't so strict as the Catholic church, and it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of activities here for the children because there was a lot of small kids here during that time. Probably about 30 or 40 young Osage children that were going to this church back in that day. But yeah, this old church here, I gotta say, I have a lot of good memories of this church. And like I say, it was the Quaker church, which is a lot different. The services were a much more quiet, reverent type services, which is known in the Quaker church. Whereas, the Catholic church, as you're up, and you're down, and you have your responses, and, the typical order of Mass for the Catholic church. And here in the French church, it wasn't near as structured as the Catholic church. So this is the next stop I had in my religious training back as a young boy. Many years here. Okay, the next stop. This next stop we're going to is the Native American Church. And my first experience in the Native American Church is when I was a real young boy. Me and my older brother Arlen were named by my grandfather, given our Osage names in the Peyote Church when we were really young. And my grandfather was the roadman, who was kind of like the preacher or priest, but they're called roadman. And he was one of the tribal elders, and he was involved in the government. And these are just on the way down. This is the Osage Indian village in Hominy, Oklahoma. And this is where we have all of our tribal functions. We have our dance arbor down here. And here's our dance arbor, where we have our tribal gatherings in June, which we call the Alonchka dances. This will be full of people here in June. There'll be camps, tents, and cook fires all over down here. It's a beautiful event. And right over here, where we're going to stop, is where this is a Peyote church, of which I'm a member. This is the Lottie Shankamola chapter of the Native American Church. And this is it right here. And this is where we have the Native American church services here in Hominy. Now this is a typical design of a Native American church. And you go inside and you have the fireplace, and you have where the roadman sits, the T-boss, and the drum man, 2 crossroads. And there's a little summer house here is where they have the dinners here. And back there is the cook fire is all back in there where they cook. And this is a good size church here. There's about 30 or 40 members. And this church will comfortably hold probably up to 60 people. And this church is very different than your average Christian churches. Although those old leaders at that time They tried to join the old religion with parts of the Catholic religion, and that's what they made into today's Native American church. There was a lot of Christian doctrine in this church here, because the Osages always believed in one God, and they did believe that Jesus had came here. The old Osages and a lot of Native Americans believed that Jesus actually came here long before the first Europeans ever came here. There's an old story, legend, where there's a white man came amongst the Osages, and he was all dressed in white, and he was like glowing. And he told those old Osages, because of course he could speak in the native tongue of the Osages, as Jesus can speak any language. So he told the people that this new way was going to be a good way for them, and he would always be here to help them. And that's kind of how I got my beginning in the Catholic Church, Protestant Church, and the Native American Church.